friends, welcome back. It is day 25 of the Every Bit Counts Challenge, and today we are making Blackberry Cobbler Filling. These blackberries we picked all the way back in June, but we didn't have time to really do anything with, so we froze them. And so now we're doing something with them. This recipe makes 1 quart jar of blackberry cobbler or pie filling, but I'm gonna double it and make 2, and I'll link the recipe down below. I got it from the website healthycanning.com, who has a bunch of great recipes. So this blackberry cobbler or pie filling is great. I love canning pie fillings and cobbler fillings and fruit fillings like this because it makes baking so much easier. If you've got pie crusts on hand, all you gotta do is dump, cover, and bake, and it's done. And all of the work is just done in an instant, and you have a fresh pie or a fresh cobbler coming out of the oven. So I love in canning season to make sure I get several jars of these fresh fruit fillings so we can use them throughout the year. The first thing you're going to need is 3.5 cups of blackberries for the base recipe, but I'm doubling it, so I have 7 cups. We're gonna take these over to the stove, and we're gonna take a pot of boiling water, and we're gonna submerge the blackberries in the boiling water, and we're gonna wait until it boils again and then boil them for 1 minute. So let's go over the stove and get that process started. All right, we are boiling, so now we're gonna add our blackberries. And once they start boiling again, we'll set that timer for 1 minute. All right, we boiled them for a minute. Now we're just pulling them out and putting them in here. And once they're out and in there, I'm gonna cover them with a towel just to keep them nice and warm. And then we'll mix up some filling in this pot. All right, so now in here, I'm gonna put my clear gel, my water, and my sugar. This calls for 5 tablespoons of clear gel, but again, I'm doubling the recipe. So I'm gonna put 10. Three-quarters of a cup of sugar, or because I'm doubling, 1.5 cups. And 1 cup of water, again, because I'm doubling, 2 cups. I want to put this on medium-high heat, and I want to stir this up until the consistency becomes really thick and bubbly. So let's stir this, and we'll show you when it's that consistency. You can see this consistency, that's what we're shooting for, this thick, bubbly consistency. The recipe now calls for 3.5 tablespoons of lemon juice, and which means we're putting in 7, and we're gonna stir that in for a minute. So that's in there, our timer's going for a minute. And when that's done, we are going to fold in nicely our blackberries, not too smushy. All right, that is the timer. Now, we're gonna take our blackberries, we're gonna pour them in, and just kind of barely fold them in, because if you crush them, then you're gonna have basically jelly on your hands. And we want this nice, thick cobbler filling. And we want the berries to basically be intact, but we also want to make sure that all of the berries are incorporated into the mixture. And that looks just about right. So now let's take that over and put it in our jars. All right, now it's time to put them in jars. And my jars are sterilized, nice and warm, because you don't ever want to put hot material in a cold jar. The canning water is warm, and I also have vinegar in our canning water, just a little dash, because we have really hard water, and if we don't put a little vinegar, the calcification, like when you pull the jars out, they're just covered in white dust. It's not harmful, but it's just kind of ugly, and then you have to wipe it off, and I'd rather not. So a dash of vinegar keeps that calcification away. So I've got my trivet in the bottom of my canner, because you don't ever want to put the glass jars directly on the bottom. That's right on the burner. And I'm gonna fill these up. I have my canning funnel. Now I'm shooting for 1 inch of headspace in these. And this should fill 2 quart jars. Now, headspace is the distance between the material in your jar and the top of the lid. Actually, I don't know that this is gonna fill 2 whole quarts. But the good news is I always have extras ready to go so that I don't have to heat separately. So I've got a pint, and this'll probably be good for a pint and a quart. All right, now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna mash out get the bubbles out of it. And I overfilled a little bit on these because I knew it's settling down in like this. And now it's settling right to that inch mark. And just for good measure, let's measure 1 inch there and 1 inch there. And the last thing I wanna do before I put the lids on is just clean off the rims really good. You don't want anything coming in the way of that seal. So when I put these on, I want to tighten, finger tight, and then 1/4 of a turn. So finger tight and then 1/4 of a turn. If you wrench down too hard on these, then it can cause problems with the sealing. So you don't want to do that. Now this recipe calls for 30 minutes time in both the pints and the quart jars. So it doesn't matter what size we have, same canning time here. We're gonna put them down in, and then like I said, I already have some warm water in here. It's not quite covering my jars, but I can fill up with the rest of warm water. And what I'm going to do now is I'm gonna make sure there's at least 1 inch of water over my cans in here. Once I do that, I'm gonna cover my canner, bring it to the stove, and set it to boil. Once it's boiling, then that's when my timer starts. Set it for 30 minutes, and then it's done. Now, I don't just immediately pull the cans out at 30 minutes. You want to take the lid off and set the timer for 10 or 15 minutes, because if you take them out right away, right as the thing is boiling, then it can cause siphoning, which is material in your jar like popping out. And we don't want that to happen. So we want them to set for a little bit and come and kind of regulate their temperature. And then we will see you back here and pull them out of the canner. All right, it has been the 30 minutes of processing time. We let it sit and cool down a little bit. Now it's time to remove those jars. And we've got 2 beautiful jars of homemade goodness. I can't wait to make pies or cobbler with these. They're going to be delicious. I have some more blackberries. We might make some more of this, or we might make some jelly. We make jelly every year, it seems. So we will see. Tomorrow, though, we are going to be canning ground beef, which will be super exciting. If you have always wondered how to can meat, we're gonna do that in our pressure canner tomorrow. So be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful evening.